All right, so I've got a very special video for everybody today. This is a book haul video, and it's pretty amazing, especially if you stick around till the end of this. I'm going to save some of the best books to the end. But there is a pretty interesting story about a very interesting man that I want to talk about first. So I live in Helena, Montana, and it is a fairly bookish town. We have this area of downtown called Last Chance Gulch. At the top of the gulch is our library, which is an amazing library. And we've got three bookstores within like a quarter of a mile from each other, probably closer than that. We have a rare bookstore, a new bookstore, and my favorite used bookstore around called Aunt Bonnie's. And if you've spent any time in this town, you'd probably have seen a man walking around with tote bags full of books. His name was David Spencer. He worked at one of our museums right around the corner from Aunt Bonnie's called the Holter Museum. And he was a prolific reader. He had a pretty interesting life if you read his obituary. And he was just kind of a mainstay in town. You always saw him around, hauling these books around. And anytime I went into Aunt Bonnie's, I almost always saw him in there. And he was kind of a fascinating person. I tried to talk to him many times. He could be a bit of a hard nut to crack. But one time, me and my wife were at our local brewery. This was this last September 2024. And there was only one kind of available area left in the brewery, and we went over there, and David was hanging out there with a bunch of books piled up, and we managed to spark up a conversation with him. It was a really good conversation. We were talking about ancient history and mythology and stuff like that, and it was really the only time I ever got to talk to him. Well, shortly after that, he died, and when he had no relatives or anything to, pass his estate on to. And the people that his co-workers at the Holter Museum, they ended up, I don't know the exact story, but they ended up kind of going into his apartment. And inside of his apartment was what they estimate to be about 10,000 books. And so they had basically kind of inherited this from David. And they weren't sure what to do with it. They kind of asked some collectors around first if anyone wanted to buy like some huge lots, and I don't think they got any feedback. I didn't really know exactly the types of books David was into, but what they ended up doing is they took a section of their museum and they got some volunteers and set up all of the books there, like 10,000 books, and they're calling it David's Bookstores. And they were selling these tote bags, but you could get a box of books, like a banker's box, for $25. So I had heard about this. Like I said, I didn't know what kind of books he was into, if I was going to find any stuff that I was interested in. I just had that one conversation with the man, really. So I didn't know that much about him. But I showed up kind of on opening day just to check it out, and wow, was I blown away. I ended up going back so far 3 times. I got a box each time, and I counted them up. It was about 150 books that I got for $75, from paperbacks to trade paperbacks and hardbacks. I'm going to go over most of these books here. There's a lot that I'm not going to show in this video. There was just kind of some random books that I would throw into the box to kind of fill it out. And there was a lot of things on the first day. There wasn't even enough room on the tables to put all the books. So there was a lot of stuff still sealed up in boxes. And slowly people were opening the boxes, and the volunteers were opening the boxes and getting them up on the table. So I went back a couple times and kept finding more and more good things. And it just seemed like the best deal to get a box for $25. Now, most people were just walking by the science fiction. He had a unique range of books. Looking at someone's library like this of 10,000 books can really tell you something about him. And man, I wish I would have got to know this guy more, because we had a lot of the same interests. He had a lot of unique, eclectic books, and it was amazing. It was overwhelming going in the first day and seeing all these books piled everywhere and trying to sort through them. But I found some amazing gems, and David was definitely into the literary side of science fiction. You're not going to see any Gordon R. Dixon or Ron Goulart or things like this. Nothing that there's anything against that, but he had a unique taste when it came to science fiction. And you could see how it fit broader into his reading. I would say over half of it was probably nonfiction. And I did get quite a few nonfiction books. But he had some amazing books. Most of them had stamps from Aunt Bonnie's. I think he got most of his books from there. But it was just a very interesting situation. It was like an estate sale for a book collector in a museum, and they were just, I mean, every time I've gone back, they're like, you want to get 3 or 4 boxes? They're trying to unload these books, and the piles are diminishing, but there's still so many books left there. And the sale is going through the whole month of February. I probably will go back at one more time and just see if anything else has resurfaced, because I didn't really spend a lot of time going through the hardbacks. But that's the intro. I hope you found that fascinating. He was a fascinating person. I'll probably post a link to his obituary down in the description. And whoever wrote his obituary is like a poet in a way. It's written so well, and it kind of gives you a glimpse of this very unique person and their unique life. So with that out of the way, let's just get into it. I'm going to go over hardbacks first, then trade paperbacks, and then paperbacks at the end. So he had a copy of Grumbles from the Grave by Robert A. Heinlein. And this is kind of, from what I can tell, this is sort of about his life. I think it's some essays and other people writing about him. And Sean D. Standfast started a thing this year, him and some others, reading through a bunch of Heinlein books. And they were mentioning this in the first video, and I just happened to run across it. I like Heinlein enough. I think I might enjoy reading about him more than a lot of his novels and fiction, because he's one that I've always had a hard time with, but we'll see. And then I got this thing, Ray Bradbury Stories. This is a massive hardback here. It contains 100 of Bradbury short stories. You've probably seen these things around. I couldn't refuse that. Then he had China Mieville, Embassy Town. I have yet to read anything from China Mieville. I'm going to try to read a few more current science fiction or other fiction soon. So I have that one, and I have his other work. I don't know, maybe that would be a good place to start. I'm not sure. Then I got 5 of the Daw Book Club annual bests. So we have 84, and these don't really have anything on the back, but they all have really cool cover art. And then we have 85. We got 86. 87. That's got to be a Richard Powers there. And didn't find 88 yet, but we have 89. There was a lot of hardbacks still packed away in boxes. I imagine there's more of those, but we'll just have to see. We got a book club of the best of C.L. Moore. This one doesn't have anything on the back. It does have a little damage on the back here. Something happened to it, but that was one of the book clubs I was missing for the best ofs. And then another one I was missing, the best of Fritz Leiber. Once again, this doesn't really have anything on the back, but this one was in really good shape. And what an interesting cover there. And then the final hardback I got was the best of Walter M. Miller Jr. And this is the Pocket Books Best of series, not the Ballantine. I have the paperback. This is a very interesting cover. I did look this up a while ago. It was more than I wanted to pay, so I was really happy to find this one in the lot. Okay, now let's move on to the trade paperbacks. Okay, the first trade paperback I got here is Zen and the Art of Writing by Ray Bradbury. And this is like essays and talking about the craft. I think even giving some advice on how to write. I've always wanted to read that one. It looks like a pretty quick, short read. I have tried to write in the past, so maybe that'll unlock my potential. And then we got Parable of the Talents by Octavia Butler. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of just like photographic covers, but her books are kind of hard to find. I didn't have this one. This is an Aspect science fiction trade paperback. So I picked that up. And then James Morrow, Only Begotten Daughter. I have a few of these. These are from Harcourt Brace Press. And I want to read more from Morrow. I've only read one book, and I thought it was okay, but I definitely want to try more from him. Then we got Robert A. Heinlein, Friday. This is a trade paperback from Dell. I'd never really seen this one before. Pick that up. Time and Again by Jack Finney. And this is from Scribner's. Got William Gibson, Pattern Recognition from Putnam Books. Now this is a nonfiction from Isaac Asimov, The Choice of Catastrophes, the Disasters that Threaten Our World. I have a few nonfiction from Asimov, but I've yet to read any of them yet. And then we got The Collected Stories of Werner Vinge. This is a Orb, kind of an oversized trade paperback. And, kind of like a best of his short fiction. Go ahead and show you what's included in this one. I've read his Zones of Thought trilogy, but I haven't read much of his short fiction. Okay, now I was really happy to find this. Chris over at Liminal Spaces talks a lot about Haruki Murakami. I think that's how you pronounce his name. I found a whole stack of trade paperbacks. I haven't read anything from him yet. This first one, Hard Boiled Wonderland and the End of the World, is one that Chris has talked about a lot. I don't know if this is the best place to start. I definitely want to read this at some point, but if someone knows, or maybe if Chris can mention, one of these others might be a better place to start. Colorless, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that. He's a contemporary Japanese writer. I think he's considered kind of magical realism. The Elephant Vanishes. This is a collection of short stories. I sent a picture to Chris when I found these, and he didn't have this one, so I'm going to send this one to him at some point when we do our next trade. Then we got Sputnik Sweetheart. And then I should mention, these are all like from Vintage is the press on here. A Wild Sheep Chase. South of the Border, West of the Sun. That's the other thing. All of these books were in such good condition. He definitely took care of his books. The Wind-Up Bird Chronicle. And then the last one I got here, I didn't realize it at first. It's an ARC, advanced reading copy, The Wild Sheep Chase. And I looked this one up online. It seems to be fairly collectible, maybe because it's an ARC. I might end up selling that one. And then the last trade paperback that I saw there was Black Easter by James Blish. And this is part of Avon's SF Rediscovery series. I did a whole video. I've collected all of these. I think there was 28 or something, maybe 27. I forget the exact number, but this is number 27. It does have a little damage there where someone pulled a sticker, but this is a pretty hard to find collectible book. Okay, now let's move on to all of the paperbacks. Okay, so these are all the mass market paperbacks that I got. There's a few nonfiction and then some kind of non-science fiction, and then I'm going to save all the science fiction for last. So we got I, Asimov. This is an autobiography from Bantam Books. And I've been doing a lot of like research and rereading of his works. So that's a big, thick book. We'll have to see if I can get to that at some point. Words from the Myths by Isaac Asimov. This is from Signet. And I think he may mostly just kind of a fascinating exploration of the living heritage from the ancient world. So that kind of sounds interesting. We got a few from Zachariah Sitchin. The Stairway to Heaven. This is from Avon Books. Now these are considered nonfiction, but it's kind of gets into that pseudoscience a bit. I enjoy reading about this stuff. I don't take it all too serious. The Wars of Gods and Men. I think this is the third book in this kind of nonfiction series he did from Avon. I like I said, I enjoy reading this stuff occasionally. When Time Began, the First New Age. And this says it's the fifth book in this series. I'm not of the Earth Chronicles. I'm not sure how many he wrote. Now these I got because the covers just looked awesome. These are both by Lewis Powells and Jacques Beringer. We got The Internal Man, and these are kind of a set. I thought this was fiction, but it's listed as nonfiction. And then The Mornings of the Magicians, and they just have some really great covers. I think these are, interesting, almost like conspiracy theory, nonfiction, pseudoscience stuff, but stuff's kind of fun to read sometimes. Holy Blood, Holy Grail. This is one I did read a long time ago. A lot of conspiracy theories about, I think this one's about the Knights Templars and all that, and the Grail. And, it was I think that came out around when Dan Brown was writing some of his stuff. The Bible and Flying Saucers by Barry H. Dowling. So you can see our man David was into some of this stuff. I have a fascination with some of this stuff as well. The Illuminoids by Neil Wilgus. This also had a pretty cool cover. It's from Pocket Books, nonfiction. And then The Teachings of Don Juan, The Yokai Way of Knowledge by Carlos Castaneda. This, I read this when I was, 17 or 18 or something. You see a lot of copies, but I picked this up and opened it up, and it is like a first printing from 1969, which seems to be a little collectible. It's in pretty good shape for its age, so I grabbed that. And then here's just some interesting stuff. We got Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett. I think most people know about this. I would love to read this someday, but it's a big, giant one. Another one, Gravity's Rainbow by Thomas Pynchon. I have some interest in this. I know it could be sort of considered science fiction by some people. I forget exactly what they kind of call this. It's a big one, but just went ahead and picked that up. This one I do want to read soon. This is Mark Twain, The Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court. And I kind of want to check this one out before I read some more of these like science fiction, alternate history timeline things. But yeah, and then we got Tales of Terror and the Unknown by Algernon Blackwood. This is a weird press. Well, this is a Dutton paperback. I haven't seen many of these around. I looked this one up. It looks to be sort of collectible. And then Mephisto. I just picked this up because I had to. It just looks so interesting. And this is by Claus Mann. And this is a Ballantine novel. Look this up. It looks to be a little collectible, a little odd. Maybe something I'd be interested in reading. And then The Confederacy of Dunces by John Kennedy O'Toole. I listened to this on audiobook a while back when Joseph from Joseph Reads Books was talking about it. It is hilarious if you're into that kind of like humor and whatnot. But I saw this paperback, so I picked that up. And then Tom Robbins, Another Roadside Attraction. This is one I read back in my younger years, and he had a really nice Ballantine paperback of that one. So I picked that one up too. Okay, so now let's get on to all the science fiction. Okay, so these are all of the science fiction mass market paperbacks. Some kind of verge into the fantasy a little bit, like this first one. This is an anthology called Xanadu, edited by Jane Yolen. And this is from Tor Fantasy. And you can see it has some pretty good authors on here. And then Black Holes, edited by Jerry Purnell. This is from Fawcett, and this looks to be kind of some non-fiction about black holes and some fiction, kind of a mix. So that sounded interesting. And then Beyond Armageddon by Walter M. Miller Jr. This is from Primus Books, which I haven't seen those very often, but we have some good authors in this one. And then there was two of these, The Road to Science Fiction. So I believe this is the first one, From Gilgamesh to Wells. These are done by James Gunn, and I've always been on the lookout for these. I've found some of these at some used bookstores that were in just horrible condition, but these were in pretty good shape. And so this is The Road to Science Fiction number 4, From Here to Forever. And I can't remember how many there are, so I think what I have here is the first one and the fourth one. And I would love to read those at some point, do some video talking about that. Then we got Gregory Benford, Timescape, from Bantam Books. Ursula K. Le Guin, The Wind's 12 Quarters. Knowing his reading preferences, I was sure there would be a ton of Ursula K. Le Guin. This was the only one I saw there. There could be some more stashed away in some boxes, but you never know. Then Alfred Bester, Re-Demolished. This is kind of interesting. This has like an intro to The Demolished Man that he never published, some short stories, I think even some essays and stuff. Bester was kind of one of my favorite authors for a while, so I'm really interested in that. And then K.W. Jeter, Nor. These next three are kind of from a group of authors that kind of followed a bit behind William Gibson in the cyberpunk era, I think. So we got Rudy Rucker, The Hacker and the Ants. Really excited to find this one. I've never read anything from Rucker. I want to read this one soon. It looks pretty cool. This is from Avon. And so that was really awesome to find that. And then Bruce Sterling, Crystal Express. This has got a pretty awesome cover on it. This is from Ace. And then let's see, we got a few from Ray Bradbury here. This one I'm probably most excited for. This is A Medicine for Melancholy. This is Bantam Printing, first US paperback of this one, in really good shape. And then Timeless Stories for Today and Tomorrow. I hadn't seen this one very often. This is another Bantam. And, you know, he wrote so many short stories. That's what most of these books, they look like novels, but they're usually short story collections. I Sing the Body Electric from Bantam Books. And then Farewell Summer. This was one I believe he wrote later in his career. This is from Harper. And then the last one is Death is a Lonely Business. It says first time in paperback from Bantam Books. This one is a little bit in rough shape, and it's got a big sticker pull shred on the back. Okay, now we got one of these Ballantine unicorn adult fantasy. So we got the unicorn down in the corner. The Children of Lair by Angelina Walton. I forgot that I had recently picked this up when I was in California and found that. I was, like I said, it was overwhelming going through this place. I didn't really take time to look up on my app if I had some of these books. A Fish Dinner in Medicine by E.R. Edison. I think this did later get put into that adult fantasy series with the unicorn on the front, but I think this is the version that didn't have that. And then collection of short stories from Shirley Jackson. They called it The Lottery, but it has a lot of other stories. This is from Popular Library. But it also includes her famous novel, The Lottery. Pierre Barbet Beaumet's Meteor. I believe this is a Daw Yellow Spine. I don't think I had anything from Pierre yet. And then H.P. Lovecraft, Fungi from Yugoth, and Other Poems. So it's a collection of poetry that Ballantine put together. And this one has some really awesome wraparound artwork on it. And I don't have many like paperbacks of H.P. Lovecraft. Here's a more modern from Del Rey, Wake Up Screaming. Collection of short stories. And then Louis Charbonneau, Psychedelic 40. This is from Bantam Books. I wish this one was in a little better shape. Has a really cool cover. I looked this up. The reviews don't sound that great, but it's a pretty cool looking book. James Blish, Midsummer Century. Another Daw, Yellow Spine here. So you can see what his tastes were. Glory Road by Robert A. Heinlein. This is from Berkeley Books. This one's definitely been read, but still in pretty good shape. Okay, now we're getting into some really good ones. So I just heard about this series called The Illuminatis. This is kind of, I don't know, almost like a mix of science fiction and some of that pseudoscience from what I can gather. It's written by Robert Anton Wilson and Robert Shea. Now, you had the first book here in this weird Lynx Press edition, I think is what this was called. But eventually I'd like to get the whole Dell set. It's a trilogy. So he had book 2, The Golden Apple. And if you've seen these before, they all have really cool artwork. It's like a nice matching set if you can find the whole trilogy in these Dell copies. So it was interesting. I was just looking that author up and happened to find those copies in Robert's collection, or David's collection. And then A Voyage to Arcturus, David Lindsay. This is a later printing from Ballantine with some really cool wraparound art. The 12th Planet by Zacharias Sitchin. I believe this is his attempt at writing science fiction. Kind of one of his most popular works, maybe. The Ruins of Earth. This is really interesting. This is from Arrow Books. It's edited by Thomas M. Dish, and it has quite the lineup. This is an anthology. It came out of the United Kingdom, but it kind of had a star-studded list in here. And I normally don't go out of my way to collect the UK things just because they're harder to find and can get expensive around here, but went ahead and grabbed that. Then H.G. Wells' Food of the Gods. I had a kind of older copy of this, but I'll probably be replacing it with this one because I really like the cover on this one, and this one's from Berkeley Books. Arthur C. Clarke, Tales from the White Heart from Ballantine Books. And then quite a few from Anthony Burgess. We got 2 versions of A Clockwork Orange, all just kind of like later printings. And I have read that one. I'm going to be rereading that in the near future. And then another one from Ballantine Books from Burgess called Tremor of Intent. And I'm not sure if this is science fiction or just regular fiction or whatnot. Okay, and then, sure enough, I saw a copy of Star of the Unborn. He had this. It is in pretty good shape, except for the bottom here. We have some damage around the spine, and it is kind of, releasing here, but these, these have just gotten very expensive, hard to find. Another one, and that's from Franz Werfel from Bantam Books. He also had another one from Franz Werfel called The Song of Bernadette. This is from Avon Books, and I'd never seen this before. I haven't followed what else Werfel has written, but went ahead and picked that up. And then we got a first printing from Avon of The Beast That Shouted Love at the Heart of the World by Harlan Ellison. I was super excited to find this one. This can be a very collectible book. Now we're getting into the really good stuff here. So we got Robert Silverberg, Dying Inside. I have the first printing of this one, but this is a different edition from Bantam Books. Stanislav Lem, A Perfect Vacuum. And this is from Harvest Harcourt Brace. I think they kind of went in conjunction. I don't know exactly how it worked, but there's a lot of Avon edition Lems, and then some of them that are like Avon/Harcourt. I don't know exactly how that worked in the publishing world, but got that one. And then R.A. Lafferty, Apocalypses from Pinnacle Books. This one has fantastic cover. Lafferty is kind of hard to find these days. It does have a lot of creasing on the spine, but other than that, it's in pretty good condition. And this final giant stack is all Philip K. Dick. Our man David loved some Philip K. Dick, and let's just go through these. So The Man in the High Castle from Berkeley Books. This is a later printing, but really good shape. Valis, another later printing from Bantam of this one. The Divine Invasion from Pocket Books, one of their Timescape line, and this has the little Canadian maple leaf, so it was kind of the Canadian version of this one in like perfect condition. I Hope I Shall Arrive Soon. This is from St. Martin's Press, and this is a collection of short stories. Martian Time Slip from Del Rey. This was a later edition of this one. Clans of the Alphane Moon, a Dell science fiction later edition. Some really great artwork. Our Friends from Folix 8. This is an Ace science fiction. And then these last 5 are all DAWs, which just blew me away. So we got Philip K. Dick and Roger Zelazny, Deus Irae. And this one's the only one that's in sort of, not the best shape, I guess you'd say. It's got a little creasing on the spine. There's a little lean. The rest of these are all in almost like near fine condition. We got We Can Build You. This one had 3 different covers. This story, We Can Build You, had 3 different DAW covers. And so I think I have 2 of them now. The Book of Philip K. Dick. This is a collection of his short stories from DAW. A Maze of Death. This one has some fantastic artwork. And then the one I was most excited for, Ubik. And this is a very hard to find collectible DAW edition. So yeah, like I said, I got more, but that's all I kind of want to show here. I just picked up some other things to fill up some boxes, some things I have some curiosities about or whatnot. But it was just awesome opportunity. You got to see what David had. Like, you can see who a person is almost from their book collection. And like I said, I wish I would have got to know him a little bit more because we had a lot of the same interests. And so that's going to do it for this video. I didn't really plan this. I kind of found out about this book sale almost at the last minute. I had forgotten that the museum was going to be doing this. And so I went down there and bought all these books. But I do have probably another normal book haul coming up later in the month. So look out for that one coming out soon. And once again, thanks for watching.